Well, we welcome you back to the Ferrari HP Esports Series, everybody. We have now arrived at Watkins Glen for our final frontier in terms of platform. It's now ACC. We've concluded Assetto Corsa. We've concluded iRacing, already confirming 6 different results of separate championships that we have, of course, featuring different regions and those platforms as well at the same time. Now we move on to our final frontier with now yet another series of drivers looking to make their way to the grand final at Ferrari World Yas Island, Abu Dhabi, to be crowned the 2025 Ferrari HP Esports Series champion. Of course, looking to follow in the footsteps of last season's champion, Luke Whitehead. George Morgan here, your commentator once again. And also back with me once more is Lewis McGlade. And Lewis, if everything that we have seen already is to go by, I think things are going to, I think the heat's going to turn up slightly more now we venture to the Glen.
Yeah, indeed. We've got those final few spots open for our drivers. Of course, we'll be dealing with 4 drivers over here on ACC, and 2 of which will go through tonight. It is a very raceable circuit. It's a very open circuit, but it is one that can cause its fair share of dramas, especially up towards the bus stop on that opening lap.
Yeah, it is always a track full of surprise. I mean, we saw it last season as well. I mean, Luke Whitehead was right in the thick of the action. Generally, you see a lot of runs heading up that long straight, don't you, heading into the inner loop. That chicane can easily throw drivers off, and of course the boot as well, which can very much offer opportunities. It's got a little bit of everything, has Watkins Glen.
Yeah, certainly so. Some extremely tricky corners, some very fast ones. Of course, the opening turn can be its fair share of difficulty. But I think it's the corner when you return from the boot back onto the main part of the circuit before heading down to the penultimate corner. I always maintain I think that is the hardest part of this circuit to get right, because you can lose so much time. It's such a low speed and awkward left-hand corner as you come up and over the crest of a hill. Super tricky, very easy to lose the rear end around, very easy to lose a lot of time around. But like I say, I think it's a very race one. I think we've got a lot of overtaking opportunities. I think we're in for an exciting evening with a strong grid as well.
Yeah, and it's quite an interesting complexion we have here on the ACC side as well, Lewis, because we're going to be taking 2 drivers from the EMEA region here on Assetto Corsa Competizione. However, it will only be 1 from Americas and Asian Pacific as well. So quite an interesting dynamic. But again, we're in that final, I suppose, process now before we head to December.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got the we've already pulled our drivers, of course, from iRacing and, of course, from Assetto Corsa. We're ready to find those final 4, and of course that plus the Thrustmaster wildcard as well, and then we'll have our 14-car grid for Abu Dhabi. It is interesting that we only take the 2 from EMEA, and then of course when we get to Asia Pacific and the Americas tomorrow, just the 1 from each of those means that I think, you know, if you're a strong driver in this, it might almost be a little bit easier because you've got that buffer of an extra position to potentially drop back into to confirm that top 2 going through, like what we had on iRacing to open up the season.
Yeah, well, let's have a look at the regions themselves. Obviously, we do have a regional map. We can describe exactly how this process works. We now arrive at the regions of Americas. Of course, that'll be coming up later on ACC tomorrow, much like Asian Pacific too. Tonight, we're going to be focusing our attentions on EMEA, the European region, and that is where this championship is going to be laid down and where our drivers will be coming from before heading into the grand final. This is the process. We took drivers from the Hot Lap Challenges on EMEA, Americas and APAC. That was done on June through July, and then eventually we lined up for the regional qualifiers September through October before then lining up for the regional finals. That is the space in time we are in right now, and we're in the process of confirming those 14 drivers making their way to the grand finals on the 3rd of December, folks. That is the next destination, Ferrari World Yas Island, Abu Dhabi, where this championship will be crowned. This is the procedure that we're following through each round process. Of course, qualifying to set the grid for race 1. We then set race 2's grid from the results of race 1 as well. And then the top 2 will proceed to the grand final on Assetto Corsa Competizione EMEA region. Of course, remember, only one driver from Americas and APAC as well. For Assetto Corsa, it was one driver per region, and for iRacing, 2 drivers per region proceeding to the grand final. So that's how the system works. A reminder of our calendar as well. We swept through a strong majority of this now. We've arrived at Watkins Glen for our first occasion here on the 7th of November. That is where we are here tonight. We're now heading through the EMEA. Tomorrow it will be a double dose with APAC and Americas to finalise the season. iRacing, Assetto Corsa already concluded. We're now on Assetto Corsa Competizione. So that is how the system works. But now it's not just me and Lewis bringing you the show. Of course, we are going to introduce Ferrari's very own Isaac Gillison. Isaac, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. Looking forward to the races tonight.
It's going to be, I think, a spicy one here, Isaac. Plenty of fantastic contenders here in this championship. We've got LFM Pro Series champions mixed up with a few GT World Challenge, should we say, drivers that have taken part. A few unknowns as well, some stepping in from the single-seater route, from other spaces of sim racing. It's quite exciting when you almost throw a batch of drivers together in one championship that come from multiple different disciplines.
Absolutely, and even more so that you throw them into a circuit that's very open. It's one of those circuits where if you get pole position or if you get on the front row, you're not sure if you're going to be leading into, in this case, it will be the chicane, the bottleneck of the chicane, because it's such a long and uphill run up as well to that part. So not only will be paramount the pace of the drivers, but also the racecraft, I think, in this one.
Yeah, which part of the track would you generally suggest is the polarizing part of this New York circuit here, Isaac? I mean, obviously you've raced in this championship in the past, you know a little bit about it. What's your take on Watkins Glen?
I mean, it's a very traction-heavy circuit, which you wouldn't say from the first place just looking at the track map, because it's just very long and winding corners. But a lot of these exits are uphill or off camber, and so if you have a bit of oversteer, you can wear out the rear tires, and then that can go wrong in a bad way. Although Assetto Corsa Competizione isn't too bad with that, and the races are quite short, so I think it will literally just be an all-out sprint. Making sure you're staying alive, that you don't go side by side through that very fast and tight chicane, because that's going to be, I think that will be the bottleneck tonight.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've got a couple, well, quite a few, I should say, GT3 specialists that are taking part. Would you automatically assume that they will take a very high role in this battle here tonight? Do you think that they're going to come out on top, out on track, especially of one of this nature?
One would say so, but I don't think that is necessarily true, because tonight we're all in the 296 GT3. Some drivers have been able to really maximize other cars in the GT3 field, but tonight they have to maximize the Ferrari. So some drivers will excel more in that car than maybe others that have not as much experience in them or not experienced in setting that car up. So we'll see who can get the Ferrari to drive the best lap time around Watkins Glen tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite compelling, isn't it, Lewis? Because obviously this is going to be the first night where we venture into the 296 here in this season's championship. We've already had the 499P with iRacing. It was the 488 back on Assetto Corsa. So, you know, this is new territory now for us this campaign. Of course, relatively new car that has been brought in over the last couple of years, moving into the 6-cylinder as opposed to the 8.
Yeah, I mean, look, I really like this car. I liked it when it first came out, when we first started seeing it on racetracks. I think it's a fantastic looking car. Certainly looks like a Ferrari, like you would expect a Ferrari to. Absolutely beautiful around the track. I think, like I say, as Isaac was saying, there'll be a few drivers on the grid that maybe aren't quite as experienced in this car on this platform, and it's one of those ones you would assume from an outside perspective that Assetto Corsa Competizione, which has a whole host of GT3s, they're all basically the same. They all do roughly the same lap times around all the same circuits. They're all going to drive pretty much the same. It's the subtle differences that really make a big difference. Even between a 296 and a 488, the subtle differences will be enough where if you're fast in one, you won't necessarily be super fast in the other. And it's one of those ones that makes it a little bit exciting. Can the expected drivers coming into it that maybe you'd look at and be like, oh, definitely they're going to be the one to look out for. Maybe they won't be, because you don't know what experience they've got in this specific car.
Yeah, well, we're now taking a look at the canvas that we're going to be dancing around and painting, certainly this evening, around Watkins Glen, based in New York, aptly known as the Glen. Of course, very minor changes have taken place at this circuit since 1971, opened back in 1956 as a permanent circuit, has taken its first professional race a year later than its opening date as well. 3.450 miles we will be undertaking through this circuit that includes the inner loop. That's 5.552 kilometers in distance as a whole. 11 turns will be amassed by the drivers making their way around the track, frequented also by Ferrari, with Ferrari Challenge North America that races here in real life and does cause quite an almighty stir. In terms of the 296, what is that like to drive, Isaac?
It's phenomenal, of course. Compared to the 488, it's a revolution. Compared to that car, it's a step or two up. So it's of course a different engine as well that you have to take into account with the turbo, and that's the big thing about the car, is that the turbo spools up at a certain RPM range, and you want to keep the car in that RPM range to get the good exits. As well as now you have to also cater for the right ABS and traction control systems on these cars, and you have to set them up correctly, because there's also different per car, also different per simulator, per track. You have to find out what the optimal amount of slip is in the tires, and set up the ABS, traction control, and your driving style to that performance peak as well as you can.
Yeah, I mean, we've got obviously quite a few drivers that are certainly ones to watch. Obviously, we were chatting a little bit just prior, before we went on air, discussing who were the main big hitters, really. And one name in particular, Grantas Caracas, has definitely been one of those names that has come out in recent times as a staunch competitor in GT competition, an LFM Pro Series champion back in Season 10, and has also taken part and has actually come out on top in Intercontinental GT Challenge Esports back in 2023. We're earmarking him potentially, Lewis, and another one as well, Amedeo Castorino, 3-time LFM Pro Series champion, also an Intercontinental GT champion as well in his own right, actually sprint champion earlier this year. So you're talking two drivers with brilliant CVs.
Yeah, I definitely with Grantas Caracas. One thing that I do remember from him is it does typically race, or at least from when I remember commentating on him quite a lot, it was typically in something like an Aston Martin or something. So I don't know how much experience he's got in the 296. I'm sure plenty, but it's definitely one to keep an eye on. We're right on board with Castorino here as you go through that iconic bus stop and then down to the carousel. This is where you launch off of the main circuit where NASCAR typically runs. Obviously runs right and keeps going through the carousel, and then remains on what is the normal circuit, of course, on around here at Watkins Glen. This is running onto the boot as we go down into the toe, and then of course getting ready for the heel. It's it's a part of the circuit that I think some people really don't like, some people really do. I'm very 50-50 on it. I think it's fine. This is an awkward corner. This is the most awkward corner though.
I mean, the question is Castorino going to lace up this first lap? We'll soon find out. Obviously making his way through the next left-hander over the top of the crest, coming out of turn 9, and soon enough it'll be turn 10. I'm sorry for the joke there, chaps. It wasn't very good, was it? It was a horrendous one. Obviously now making his way through the final corner very shortly before hitting the long straight coming out of turn 11, and we'll see where Castorino is going to lay down the benchmark, getting so close to the barrier on the escape as well before heading down through towards turn 1, crossing the line with a 1:42.627. We're now seeing Caracas go to the top ahead of Castorino now. 85 thousandths between the two that we've highlighted already at the top of the show, and it will be the Lithuanian on top here in the initial stages. And bear in mind, only a 10-minute session, so you haven't got a huge amount of time here, Lewis, to lay down your best time.
Yeah, Junkovic is there with a good lap time as well, quarter of a second off of Grantas Caracas. Mateusz Chinotti, who we're looking at here, a little bit away from where we were expecting, 1.4 seconds. We were expecting Chinotti to be around the top two in that kind of ballpark where Junkovic is in that third spot. Clearly did not nail that lap time, 1.4 seconds off of the pole. Lucasen then through the final corner up towards the line. We're going to try and get somewhere into the 42s or 43s. What's it going to be from Lucasen? Gets within half a second of the pole.
Yeah, Duke Novicius currently sat just over 2¼ tenths away, with Baduda down in 4th as well. Castorino out on another lap, and with 5 minutes and 30 to go, looking to lay down perhaps an improved lap time to try and topple Caracas off that top spot, but they will be sharing the front row when they take the rolling start for the beginning of the race later on tonight. Of course, the only Brit in this field as well is Davy Hill, who's now also appearing in the Ferrari HP Esports Series, currently down in 9th spot, just over a second. And in fact, he's the highest driver that's just over a second outside of Caracas's P1 provisional time so far. Castorino, though, whipping the tail out on the 296 again as he flurries around turn 11 once more, looking to improve once again, with other drivers also following in his footsteps. He might be offering a tad slipstream there, and Castorino going first fastest, so has found that little essence of improvement, and it's enough to send him nearly a 1/10.5 faster.
Yeah, I know it's obviously not too much so the case, because Grant's Caracas, I think, is about 3 or 4 cars behind Castorino. I was going to say that Caracas is getting a little bit of that benchmark come in from Castorino, so he knows what to go for. But obviously, he's already basically in the final corner when Castorino sets the time, so he doesn't have that much time to react to it. But he can see that time coming in. He knows he's now got a 42.4 to beat. Junkovicius did also improve, as does Baduda, up to 2nd position. So the top 4 cars separated by under 0.2 of a second. Nice and tight between that top group.
Yeah, cracking lap there from Baduda to go second fastest, just toppling Caracas now by 12 thousandths of a second as he now crosses the line. Lucasen also looking to improve. He goes second fastest, so this suggests that the track is definitely improving bit by bit. We might not see the best times come through until the bitter end here, Isaac.
Yes, for sure. You can see there's a bit of track evolution, but also they are getting their tires up to temperature. I think that there's 2 flying laps where you really have the tire in the right window to set the best lap time. And I think we're now starting to see people getting the car where they want in terms of tire performance. And that's why I think you see those lap times really improving at a fast rate. It's a 10th separating, or just over a 10.5 separating the top 5. And what we said before, that run up to the chicane, I think it's anybody's game at this point.
Yeah, well, it's currently the 3-time LFM Pro Series champion on top right now, looking to become a Ferrari HP Esports Series champion for the very first time too. But Caracas will be the next man we watch crossing the line just now. See, just a 10th of 3/4, goes first fastest now. This time responds to Castorino, 17 thousandths between them, and it's Caracas, the Lithuanian, back on provisional P1, as Jeremy Baduda is now also down in 5th as a result of that as well. But incredible to see the top 5 all within 0.2.
So tight around here. And again, this is one of those ones where the circuit's not insanely complicated, and so we do expect the times to be pretty tight around here. But this is even pushing those parts of our imagination to the absolute limit. 1/4 of a second separating 7 cars. Baduda was able to improve to go up into 3rd position. Castorino searching for those 17 thousandths of a second to grab pole position back. We are expecting the fight this evening to typically be between Caracas and Castorino, but the rest of the field are saying, look, this isn't just a them party. There is certainly the opportunity for someone else to knock at the door, especially considering how raceable the circuit can be.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Plenty of width there for the drivers to play with, and that's why this track is, I think, yearned for by many drivers here, Isaac. It has that potential to offer 2, 3, maybe even 4 wide scenarios.
Absolutely, and just looking at the track from top down, like the track map, it doesn't look honestly that interesting. But if you add all of the elevation change and the camber change throughout the corners that you have here, it's got a lot to offer. And it's got a nice flow to it. The higher downforce the car you have, the more fun I would say this track is as well. But in a car like this, there's not too much downforce, but that then opens the door for a lot of slipstreaming. So I think we'll see some nice battles there. 5 thousandths of P1 there is Castorino.
That is a truly outrageous gap there between Caracas and Castorino. Once again, the 2 LFM champions duking it out over this provisional P1 slot. Remember, this is the only qualifying session we're going to get here tonight, because the grid for race 2 will be decided by the result of race 1, which really makes this qualifying session everything here, Lewis, especially now that we're in the final minute.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's now or never for a lot of these drivers, and the fact that there is only 5 thousandths between the top, there's not really much of a gap to slot in between if you're going to get onto that front row. So anyone here, they're definitely in the potential chances of fighting for pole position. 40 seconds left to go and not that many opportunities to find. It's quite hard to find those final tenth or so of a second because it is such a high confidence circuit. Like I say, you got to be very confident on the throttle. As I was saying it earlier, from an outside perspective, you don't necessarily think it's that much of a traction based circuit, but when you start seeing the cars go around, you start to understand the earlier that you can get on the power, it has such a large payment in by getting onto that power really early around some of those longer corners, especially at places like the toe when you go out onto the boot section, even on the run through turn 1, you get on that power early. It's such a long run up towards the bus stop. Can Linus Lucassen potentially improve here?
Yeah, Linus Lucassen there making his way up towards the line. He's only just under a tenth and a half away from Caracas up at the very top. He's not going to improve this time, though. Checkered flag hits. He will remain fourth at best. But here comes Ruggiero now making his way through the final corner. Let's see whether he can improve as well. The young Italian, Edoardo Ruggiero, now up towards the line, looking to break inside the top 4. Can't quite do it. Remains fifth fastest. That'll be where he stays unless someone else can beat his lap time. Zuknavicius now making his way through out of P6, looking to improve inside the top 5 as well. He's currently got a car in front of him right now, and so far no improvements elsewhere. Castorino's in the pits. He won't be putting in an improved lap time. Caracas still on top by 5 thousandths of a second. Baduda also still sat in P3. He could yet lay down an improved lap time before we bring an end to this session. We are basically in extra time here at this stage. The drivers now look to throw everything into the final few corners here at Watkins Glen. Here comes Zuknavicius now up towards the line. He's getting a lovely toe up towards the line in his 296. Is it enough for an improvement? No. P6 at best. Zane Lotti also down in 9th as well. He won't find an improved time, but this is the man we want to see. Baduda, who threatened earlier on for that P1 place. He's sat 3rd for now. Can he break out of Castorino and Caracas? No, he'll go 3rd fastest. Not quite enough for Baduda. Great effort, though, from the 2 up at the very front. Grantis, Caracas, and Castorino were the ones to watch, and they will be sharing the front row ahead of our first race of the evening, Lewis.
I think Baduda did improve on that final. I think he's the only driver really to improve on that final lap. He improved by that 13,000 a second, went from 0.140 to 0.127 off of the pole. So a solid improvement. Got to say, Grantis Caracas giving Zuknavicius there quite the slipstream around the circuit, and probably gave him the fright of his life coming out through the penultimate corner with a big kick of oversteer that Caracas has. Of course, the 2 compatriots, Lithuanian drivers, trying to do, and I'm sure they're pretty good mates. I mean, I'd give my fellow compatriot a little bit of slipstream around. I don't know about you.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's national pride, isn't it, as far as Lithuania are concerned? Do you ever feel that way yourself, Isaac, when you're working with teammates?
Absolutely, absolutely. And in this series specifically, remember, it's 2 guys going through, right? So if you want to work together, then and you have a compatriot next to you on the starting line, then that makes things so much easier, makes things so comfortable. So I think that's what we saw happening there. Grantis Caracas trying to get Zuknavicius up next to him on the front row.
Yeah, we saw a little bit of that last year with Lucas and Leandro Verla in last year's campaign, obviously working together to try and make their way to the front. To be fair, I think they both shared different platforms, but they were both backing each other's corners, trying to get into the grand final of the Ferrari HB Sports Series, and there was, of course, Verla representation when we went to the grand final last year. Obviously, Caracas managing to nail down the crucial blow towards the bitter stage of qualifying to go fastest at the end of that session. Castorino looked to put in that big threat as the 2 LFM champions met. Quite appropriate that it's these 2, really, Lewis.
Yeah, very much so. But I don't think it's just them 2, right? Yeah, obviously this whole talk and what we've seen in the qualifying session, 5 thousandths of a second between Caracas and Castorino, extremely close between those 2, and we are expecting the fight to be between them 2. But the fact that the next 5 cars are all basically within a couple of tenths of a second of the pole as well, it's not just about the top 2. Everyone else can fight for this, and I think we might see those big slipstream games work their way down into this part of the circuit, into the bus stop on that opening lap. That's where we're going to need to see some of those fights come from. Because I do get the feeling you might be able to check out around here if, say, the couple of cars behind do a little bit of side-by-side for a few corners, you can break that slipstream, break that gap, and that might make things very difficult.
I think it's also important to highlight as well, Isaac. I'm not sure whether you'd agree with me on this. Linus Lucasen and Eduardo Ruggiero, who line up 4th and 5th at the end of qualifying, they actually only managed to amass 3 laps during the course of that session, as opposed to our leaders amassing 4 laps. Others further back even managing to list out 5. With them able to do that over a shorter run, or the shortest run out of the group of drivers that took part in qualifying, does that suggest that perhaps they're a little bit more clinical than other drivers?
Possibly, I think, but at the moment they are the ones that need to make a move now, because the top 3, I would say, they want to be working together up to that run, because there's 2 people going through. You don't want to fight this first race. Let's see how it unfolds, and then second race you might make some moves. But the really aggressive moves need to be from P4 and P5, I think.
Yeah, well, expect a lot of movement, everybody, and also if you're watching and watching the broadcast wherever you are around the globe, we are of course live on YouTube and Twitch. Be sure to interact. We're now going to be watching 17 drivers make their way down through towards the lights. They currently will be blazing red. As soon as they go green, we're going to be seeing Caracas, Castorino, and everyone else filing in behind them go down through towards turn 1, blasting away in the Ferrari 296 3-put pedal to the metal, and it is go as we watch them all rush down through to the first corner. Apex so far, Caracas and Castorino still manacled together. Baduda just getting it slightly wrong on the inside of turn 1, and that's thrown the opportunity to Linus Lucasen to move up into 3rd place. So a great jump there for Lucasen, the German, who now moves up through the order. There's others further back filtering side by side, as we would expect, as now we see the front runners starting to fight it out. The number 4 of Caracas still leading the way. Elsewhere, Castorino just watching him from behind. No changes up at the front though. They got so close together coming up the long straight, but Caracas leads the way here at the start of race 1.
Yeah, not 100% sure why, but Ruggiero was starting from the pit lane, so clearly had some issue there on the race start. So he was already in the pit lane when the formation had started. But for those at the front, like you say, great start from Caracas, great start from Castorino. I do get the feeling there was a car off the road there that was might have been Hill, and there's also a spinner in the background. So there's been even more drama a little bit further down the order. But for those at the front, everything remaining pretty stable.
I would imagine. Isaac, just to pick your brains on this, Ruggiero, is that sort of breaking a rule on the formation lap phase?
I don't think it's on the well, you have to break a lot of rules to get sent back to the pits. Maybe there wasn't enough time for him to load the setup and get everything ready, and he didn't click on start early enough, because then you automatically go back to the pits. But it could also be a technical problem. Let's see. Is he driving? He seems to be
driving now.
Yeah, so hope he can make some positions up and then perhaps have a shot in race 2 as well.
Yeah, tricky stuff there for Eduardo Ruggiero, who's going to be now looking to move his way up from 16th place. Caracas, though, still with the lead right now. Castorino lining up in 2nd. Lucasen, who has made a really promising start, now starting to cruise up onto the back of the fellow red 296 of Castorino, with Baduda in the blue 296, also met with fellow blue 296 of Uknavicius, who's currently down in 5th spot ahead of Frey, the Swiss driver, who currently sits in 6th spot ahead of Fiorentini, as they now come through the inner loop now. You just see that full commitment there from Caracas as he made his way through the first sector, and you know, you can afford to do that on some occasions. Good job we're in good beefy GT3 cars, because of course those curbs can send you a little bit askew from time to time, Isaac.
Yes, for sure. But it's really important that you dial that in during practice, that you are not only consistent over those curves, but you hit the same curb in the same angle with the car, with the same weight transfer. Because if you don't do that, then chances are that it's going to push you off, and at that speed, especially that chicane, it can also end in tears.
Yeah, well, Duke Novicius, now we're currently seeing him come through the next right with Frey just in the background, getting a little bit closer as he makes his way through on this lap. The Swiss driver, Michael Hermann Frey, looking to register a top 5 at the very least, looking for the big points here in order to give himself every chance of potentially qualifying. Remember, there are 2 spots available for the EMEA regions here on Assetto Corsa Competizione, so every driver will be looking to make its way to the front in order to contest for that entry slot into Ferrari World Yas Island. Abu Dhabi is now Caracas, begins the next lap, has taken the fastest lap as well as we conclude our second one. Castorino in second place, riding on board with Amadeo Castorino right now, as you can see on the right-hand picture, as they now fly uphill through turn 2, turn 3, soon to be turn 4, and then they'll hit the long straight. Of course, not a huge amount of slipstream here, Lewis, so Castorino is going to have to be patient.
Yeah, but the thing that I'm seeing from Castorino, watch him here through the bus stop. So Granus Caracas is a lot more aggressive, not for the first part, this final part. Watch him here. See how much more of that curb that Granus Caracas is taking through the exit of the bus stop. He's got the confidence to take his car basically all the way over. I think he was dipping 2 wheels on the grass that time. And Castorino's not quite got that confidence. The thing is that confidence sounds all right, but if you get that slightly wrong, clearly Granus Caracas is taking a risky game here. And it's what Isaac was saying about how you've got to take the curb exactly right, basically every single time. This is back with the likes of Petrov. Let's see what's happened going through the bus stop chicane, taking a little bit too much of that second part and straight lining the final. Yeesh.
Yeah, not a great visit there for Petrov, who's now seen himself march down to the rear end of the field, currently lapping 16th place now behind Davy Hill as it stands. Eduardo Ruggiero on a bit of a comeback drive right now, Isaac. Currently sat P13. Remember, he was at the very back after starting from the pit lane.
For sure.
Yeah.
If you do have a bit of pace in hand on this track, then you can make some overtaking moves. So I think for him, he really needs to try and get through the field cleanly if he can. You can see he's got a bit of a gap ahead, but he's shown some good pace in qualifying, so I'm sure he can close that before the race is over and maybe sneak his way into the top 10 potentially. And then let's see what happens in race 2, because we still have that bottleneck of the chicane in lap 1. So let's see if he can take some chances.
Well, and you think it's truly possible here at the Glen. Linus Lucasen has taken the fastest lap over the last lap too, so getting closer to the back of Castorino and Caracas as the top 3 begin to concertina up just a little bit more. Baduda down in 4th with Duke Novicius down in 5th, and Frey in 6th place once again, though he is now outside of a second. 1.2 between him and Duke Novicius right now, so the top 5 starting to break away ever so slightly. And like he benefited from the use of the toe in qualifying, Duke Novicius benefiting off the toe again, just clambering on the back of Baduda and keeping himself in this podium fight, as we now ride on board with the rear wing of Grantas Caracas, just literally managing his race right now. Doesn't have to do anything crazy. I would suggest that this is the top 2 playing a very subtle game right now, Lewis.
I mean, look, the thing is they can't play that much of a subtle game. The thing is, Castorino is certainly not safe. There's still 8.5 minutes left to go of this race. This is still plenty of time. Remember that this race obviously pays out points. It is the standard FIA point system, so the whole 25, 18, 15, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, and 1. So the top 10 scoring points in that. But this also sets the grid for the next race. Now, there are 2 drivers that go through from this evening's proceedings. There are 5 cars involved in this battle, and the fastest lap has dropped to the final driver in this group, being Duke Novicius. So this group is getting closer and closer. The entirety of them are separated by under 2 seconds. The top 2 might be, I wouldn't necessarily say it's intentionally playing a game, but it's a very risky one indeed, because they're keeping Lucasen, Baduda and Duke Novicius pretty close, and they're unable to check out. And that's why, as much as we're talking about the top 2 quite a lot this evening, no one else is necessarily out of it. It only takes one mistake to completely open the door for anyone else to come through.
And the whole top 5 are breaking away considerably ahead of Frey right now. We're talking 1.9 seconds now, the gap between Frey and Duke Novicius. So it's only growing here, Isaac. And really, I suppose if you are Lucasen, Baduda, Duke Novicius, you know, you've got probably the best opportunity you're going to witness in the entirety of tonight's action. Obviously, bear in mind the CVs the top 2 drivers in this field do have. With Lucasen, Baduda and Duke Novicius being in this position where they are within that second gap, in fact, they're only mere tenths away, it only takes one effort in order to potentially throw the race in your corner.
Absolutely, absolutely. And at the moment, it's only Caracas in this top train, obviously, that doesn't have a slipstream. P2, P3, P4, and P5, they are all waiting, or 3, 4, and 5 are waiting for Castorino to go side by side with Caracas to for them to catch up. If they go side by side, like it's anybody's game. Like everyone will be really close to each other. But the problem Castorino is running into now is that yes, there's a long slipstream between turn 1 and that chicane, but there isn't a big braking zone. So there isn't any closing speed or dive he can make into that chicane. So that's what he's running into, and maybe also a little bit of comfort in that, okay, the top 2 positions go through, I'm in second place, I'm in a good position for the second race as well. So maybe he's thinking about that as well.
Yeah, well, Matteo Cinotti also a man on the move, looking to take down Meckelholt in 9th spot. So it's wheel to wheel between the 2.296s now on the run up through towards the inner loop outside line as they look to rub the paint off each other's cars. And the better line fed to Cinotti on the latter half of the chicane section. And it will be Cinotti up into 9th place. Textbook move there, but it got very close there, Lewis.
Aggressive, but I like it. Like I say, you can make those moves going into the bus stop. I think it was a poor exit off of T1 from Meckelholt that opened up the door for Cinotti to come through and certainly pounce. We've seen an example now that we need to see between this top group if we're going to see that opportunity come in, that overtake come in. Like you say, it is a tiny braking zone as they flick into the bus stop. So you're not going to make the move done on the brakes. You're kind of asking for a mistake, either at T1 or on the exit of the bus stop. That's kind of where you're going to find the opportunity to come through at that point of the circuit. And everywhere else, they seem to be fairly equidistant apart. There isn't really the overtaking opportunity between them. I mean, the heaviest braking zone on this circuit is this one down into T1, but as much as a 90-degree right-hander, it's not a brilliant overtaking opportunity. However, we are going to see one come in from Castorino, looking to the outside. Now, this could slow Grantes Caracas enough here to potentially see some form of side-by-side into the bus stop.
And it could be the big gift here for Linus Lucassen to potentially strike it in position on the likes of Castorino and maybe Caracas as an extension as well, because both cars didn't get necessarily the best of exits on the run out of turn 1. Caracas, though, at this point in time, still with the lead. You just see there Castorino fanning out, looking to the outside straight away. The first shot fired here from Castorino in the initial, and we have been waiting for it. It has been far too patient. Untitled also battling with Baduda further back to the 2 blue 296s. Also had a little look on one another just now, but still Caracas holds the lead. Castorino, I get the sense, is thinking about a move in the dying minutes of this opening race.
It's fascinating how it's all unfolding between this this quintet as to how things are going to unfold in that final lap of the race. Did see a lot of lifting there going into the bus stop. A lot of lifting whilst you're on board with Lucassen. Maybe thinking, look, now's not the time to try and send it going into the bus stop. I think the last lap, George, that might be a little bit different. They might not be so many lifts. There might be that attempt to drag it side by side and to go for that look. Remember that you're obviously battling for some very important points here. 25 points for the winner. If you're 5th in this group, you score only 10. That's quite a large jump between the front of this group and the back of this group. They're hungry to score more points. They're going to have a couple of laps left to go around here. In fact, there should be 3 laps left to go by my maths.
Yeah, I mean, my BDIs are focused on Linus.
2, don't worry.
My BDIs are on Linus Lucassen. I think if there's one driver who could really profit off this, he is the one that could be in the opportune position to strike against these 2 up at the very front that very nearly came together coming through the first corner on the last lap. Well, this time Castorino is not going to have an opportunity to challenge through turn 1, but he might have a chance here on the long run up through towards the inner loop again. They're going to tackle the back straight, and now coming in towards the chicane section, where they'll venture out of turn 5 and then eventually throw it in towards turn 6 at the chute, but still Caracas holding on up at the very front, will indeed have at least another lap out in front on track. Of course, the next lap will be the final lap of the race as they now hustle through this next segment and head down once more with Lucassen almost the cork in the bottle for Baduda right now, and Duke Novicius still part of this 5-car contingent and still holds the fastest lap, Lewis.
Yeah, indeed. Obviously, the fast lap did come in a few laps ago, mind, but still, it will be a little bit of a confidence boost to Novicius that that purple colour is still next to his position. He is the one that has the fastest lap. He is the one that has the most potential at the moment, but this group still remains incredibly close. About a second and a half separates the entirety of these 5 cars with one final lap left to go. Surely no one is lifting here. One mistake from Grantis Caracas and Amadeo Castorino will go for something, whether it is down to the T1, whether it is into the bus stop. 18 points is great, but 25 is a whole lot better.
2 GT3 champions stand tall at the top of the shop here in race 1 with 1 minute or so to go. We're now on the final lap. It's Caracas who leads the way as they head through turn 1. The question is, will Castorino get the run up the hill coming through the back straight before hitting the chicane section? Will he have an opportunity to challenge for the race lead? Lucasen watching on as well. We can just see from the rear view on Caracas's car, you can see the 2 red. 296 is also looking to gain a little bit of delta on the run up the hill. You can just see Castorino getting closer and closer. Not close enough though to execute anything coming through the chicane. He's going to have to do it in the corners here, Isaac.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He needs to stay close. There's a couple of heavy braking zones coming up after this downhill right and then, or downhill left and then uphill right. So he needs to try and get good exit out of these corners to have a chance for maybe a look or a dive into these next heavy braking zones.
Well, it could come here in the middle sector. We'll wait and see. Mere seconds are left. But of course, we all know this is the final lap of asking. The Lithuanian Grantis Caracas leading the charge right now. Already a GT3 champion in his own right, an LFM Pro Series champion, also competing in SRO Esports competition, and now here in the Ferrari HP Esports Series on a quest to land a first race win out of 2 that he could potentially achieve after this very one, as well as they now come through the final few corners here on this final lap. Still giving chase Castorino, but he's not going to be close enough as we ride on board in picture Grantis Caracas with Ferrari shirt emblazoned on his chest. We're now watching him make his way out of the corner, the final corner that is, taking the checkered flag, and victory here in race 1 goes the way of Grantis Caracas. The Lithuanian takes the first race win, and this, I'm sure, will give him a huge bout of confidence heading into race 2. One hand on qualification here, Lewis.
Yeah, that was a really solid drive. One of those ones where you're under an awful lot of pressure, not by one car, not by 2, but by 4 other cars on your shoulders. And he dealt with the pressure brilliantly. Junkervicius obviously getting past Baduda there on the final laps, up to 4th position from the final position of that group. Cracking stuff, but a great drive from Grantis Caracas. The top 2 are what we were expecting between Caracas and Castorino. But now that you know that we're going into that final race where they're all going to be a little bit more hungry, you know that only 2 cars go through. I get the feeling that someone might get a little bit aggressive here down into T1 and the bus stop in the second race.
Well, it's all or nothing now, isn't it, really, at this point? Where, of course, we've got one winner, or should we say one race winner confirmed here tonight, 1 race down. Remember, there's only 2 that we take part in. The next one will be teed up from the results of that first race. Isaac, it's surely all or nothing here. This is their last chance here to get qualification for the grand final.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's now or never. One dynamic I did see in that race, and what we saw in qualifying as well, is that Caracas gave Junkervicius a slipstream. Junkervicius was able to get up to P4 at the end of that race, making a move in a final lap, I believe. And one incident I am thinking back to as well, or just that fight for the lead, is I've not seen a P1 and P2 get really close into turn 1, except for that one time. So I do wonder if Caracas really made a mistake in that final corner, almost hitting the barrier perhaps, or if he's trying to help Junkervicius get some positions as well to get up next to him in that second spot to the Abu Dhabi finals.
So again, perhaps some of that team play on show like we saw in qualifying. We'll have a look at that and extrapolate that as we go on, folks. The one thing we can say is that Grantis Caracas is your race winner and has taken 25 points to kick us off here this evening. Amadeo Castorino in second with 18 points ahead of Linus Lucasen on 15. Tadas Junkervicius in 4th on 12 points. Level currently with Andrea Zanelotti on 12 in 5th. Jeremy Baduda in 6th on 10. We have Mirko Fiorentini in 7th place on 8 points, ahead of Michael Herman Frey in 8th place as well. We can also move down and show you the rest of the order too, of course, from P's 9 all the ways down to, with Matteo Cinotti on 2 points, Tim Meckelholt on 1 point in 10th. The rest, Eduardo Ruggiero, who gave a great account of himself after the difficult start, after starting from the pits, ahead of Fabrizio Campanella in 12th, and David Kaloksai in 13th, with Leon Hopp in 14th, Dennis Alacqua in 15th, and Lucas Ucci in 16th place. So that is how the standings look so far. Obviously, we've still got one more race to decide the drivers that will be heading through to the Ferrari HP Esports Series Grand Final. But we were alluding to that team interplay, Lewis, and again, it's reared its head. Do you think the two Lithuanians are helping each other out here?
Oh, I think certainly so. I mean, why wouldn't you? You got your compared how the Lithuanians actually. To be fair, when it comes to sim racing, we do have some pretty speedy Lithuanians in the world of sim racing, especially over here on Assetto Corsa Competizione. So there's no shock there trying to work some degree together. We saw that a little bit in qualifying. I get the feeling Grant Karakis would be very happy to go to Abu Dhabi with not only himself but with Ignovicius as well. But of course, that's going to take a little bit of work for Ignovicius to come through in this second race. And I think there is the possibility of it. You've got the overtaking opportunity down to the first corner, but I just get the feeling that you kind of want to make that move early because you want that track position, because it did seem like it was quite difficult to overtake courtesy of the medium to high speed around here. But the problem is, if you do go for it early and then you remain side by side for a few corners, then your chances of being in the top two could go immediately by the fact of you remaining side by side and losing that slipstream and losing that battle. So it's a really tricky one that you kind of just have to go with the flow.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we witnessed that late move towards the bitter end where Duke Novicius was able to move up into that, I think it was a P4 spot in the end of that race. Obviously, that was a very patient drive from all those considering. Obviously, Castorino did have a little look at Castanella towards the very, or should I say, Caracas towards the very end of the race. Well, in fact, it was more around midway point, I would say, coming into the latter stage. Do you think we're going to see a bit of a switch now, Isaac, where the drivers are starting to put a larger element of risk in the opening stages just to gamble in a bid for greater results? Because I get the feeling it's going to be a furiously fast race right from lights to flag.
Absolutely. I think so. What we said before, this race is the one that counts really. The last race, you could be a bit more conservative to see what would pan out. If there's going to be a crash and you're in P3, P4, then you're in the prime spot. But for this race, you need to make your own chances. And so slipstreaming, especially lap 1 out of that first corner, that's going to be really key. And will be interesting to see if there will be a little bit of cooperation between P1 and P2, maybe a bit of bump drafting if possible, to trying to keep the guys behind off of them. But this race is going to be hopefully nice and exciting with some overtakes.
Yeah, and definitely when we consider what's at stake, because obviously being a Ferrari HP Esports Series champion is no short deal, really, is it, Isaac? I mean, you know a little bit about it. We saw Luke Whitehead come through and become champion last season. We've seen James Baldwin become champion as well in the past and go on to do great things and racing in the GT World Challenge, for example. So, you know, it's a great foundation to elevate young drivers and also put drivers into the spotlight for big futures in the world of sim racing, and it's great to see Ferrari contributing to that. From your side, your perspective as a former competitor in this series and doing so well, you know, how influential was being part of this championship to your career?
Well, not only my career, I would call it life-changing. And you know, people throw around these or this kind of term quite often, and you think, yeah, right. And you see the team from the outside. It's a fantastic team, of course. Even from the outside, it's got a lot of history and passion and legacy. But then when you get into the team, and I've been lucky enough to experience that, it is truly life-changing. It's like joining another family. You feel right at home. It's a really special feeling to represent those red cars, the incredible brand. And so they are not just racing for a spot in a team, they're racing for a life-changing opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if far beyond extends wider, doesn't it, as well, Lewis? Because we've seen, you know, many drivers come through into the Ferrari HP Esports Series, and by extension, then they've got great teams that take part, for example, in the F1 Sim Racing World Championship and have become regular teams champions already in the past, and actually won it back in 2023 with such a dominant lineup, and we're so used to seeing Ferrari dominance, not only in the world of motorsport, but also now we're seeing it more and more in sim racing, and it is a great platform, is it not, for any young driver looking to jump into the space?
100%. I mean, look, I think it's really important to have these teams and these series that new drivers in the world of sim racing look up to. Now, you can have whatever championship it is, be the one you look up to, but there's something about having that real motorsport influence into it. And Ferrari being one of the most recognizable brands, it's not as if this is, just some some mates have put on like a little iconic, Ferrari's a brand or whatever, we'll just race under that. This is the real deal. This is Ferrari as a brand that are backing drivers and teams in sim racing. And for a young driver coming into the space, I remember when I started sim racing, there was nothing like this when I started sim racing. And so for that, it's inspirational for a younger driver trying to make their way up in sim racing, because this is something to work towards, whether it is being in the competition, whether it is making it to the final, whether it is that dream of becoming a Ferrari driver in the esports space. This is kind of the challenge that you kind of want to work towards to begin that journey and begin that process to represent one of, if not the most recognizable brand that there's ever been in motorsport.
Yeah, and of course we see the 296 being utilised by many great teams in the realms of GT3 racing, for the likes of AF Corsa, for example, who've been so phenomenal in their run with Ferrari, and it's been an influential run for them. They had vast GT3 success last year as well in international GT competition, and now once again we're seeing the 296 in a virtual sense, showing exactly what it's capable of. A demon in a straight line. That's exactly what the 296 is, very much like its predecessor, the 488. Even despite going down to 6-cylinder as opposed to 8, the venom is still there with these cars, that's for sure. As now the green flags get waved ahead of race 2, and we put pedal to the metal, and it is go, 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 go for the final time tonight. And it's Caracas and Castorino fighting each other once again. Caracas, though, is always going to win that battle, having that inside line, but I must say, a very difficult exit here for Castorino. Might yet tempt Linus Lucasen for a potential run coming up through the hill. They're going to take the long track up through towards the intersection, as now they do storm upwards now, coming through the back straight. Here they go this time. Castorino in the wheel track straight away of Caracas. Is he going to gamble straight off? Not quite. Lucasen watching every move he makes. It will be Grantis Caracas, our race winner from before, as the car goes wide, coming through the inner loop, and I'm sure we'll end up dropping down the order as a result. But Caracas leads here, Lewis.
I think that yellow car might have been Meckelholt at the back end of the top 10, dropping down the field from 9th position. But Grantis Caracas, you're absolutely right, translated brilliantly, dealt with the pressure. Castorino and Lucasen remain behind. You really got a good view from that the curb cam there of the difference in line. Caracas went straight over the camera. Castorino, Lucasen, Junknevicius, they all went round it. It's such a high level of confidence that he's got going through the bus stop, and it's where you make so much time up if you're able to do so. And he's playing his cards brilliantly through there at the moment. But I do get the feeling it's not going to be a simple run to the checkered flag in 13.5 minutes time.
No, not at all. At the moment, Caracas holding his own, but for how much longer can he hold on to it? I don't think it's going to be as simple as it was in race 1. Not that it was simple one iota anyway. Castorino did threaten to take the race lead and the initial 25 points out of the opening race, but it did not end that way, as Caracas now crosses the line to begin the second one here this time, and as a result, of course, by being our leader, automatically takes the fastest lap of the race as the Lithuanian comes through the first corner, this time through towards turn 2, up through the S section, before then making his way towards turn 4, where he'll meet the back straight. But a very orderly start here, but that could all change with one move to the inside, and we've noticed, certainly notoriously over the last few laps, that this back straight can create something. You can just see there the delta shrinking in between the front two cars as they fly through the chicane. Just look at how much commitment's on offer. Getting very dicey there as well. Coming through that chicane was the light blue car. We've got a side-by-side as well further back. That might be Meckelholt, as you were alluding to, down in 14th place, trying to recover here. Caracas still holding his own. Mirko Fiorentini, who we're currently seeing on screen, he's currently ahead of Petrov and Meckelholt, who continue their battle. And it looks like Meckelholt has got the job done. I think he's got 14th there, Lewis.
Yeah, I think the side-by-side we saw going into the bus stop there, that was Baduda. He's lost a position to Ruggiero, who's making, once again, a cracking start to this race. Obviously, the disappointment of the previous race starting from the pit lane. Now it's 1.6 seconds off that top group in that red Ferrari in the background. Behind, of course, Untitled. So they'll be keeping Baduda and Frey at bay. But of course, where we had 5 cars in the previous race for the in the battle for the race lead, we have just 4. Lucasen a little bit off of the apex here as we rejoin the main part of the Watkins Glen circuit, allowing Untitled to maybe have a bit of a look. Again, this group separated by a second as we return out onto the start-finish straight. 2 laps complete, still plenty of time to go. We're going to need to see some good lines, especially in that opening corner from Castorino, if he's going to be able to go for a move anywhere around here.
Yeah, well, Caracas once again crosses the line, still holds on to the fastest lap of the race so far. Castorino just watching every move he makes. Jeremy Baduda down in 6th spot as well behind Ruggiero, who I must say is really driven brilliantly to restore himself back inside the top 5, despite being 1.6 off the drivers currently sat down in 4th of Duke Novicius. That is the gap between those two, 1.6 seconds as it stands. And of course, he will be forfeiting slipstream here, Ruggiero, which might yet tempt a move here from Baduda, who I'm sure will be looking to scrap for extra points, any extra points that he can muster here at this stage, ahead of Michael Frey, who's down in 7th, ahead of Zane Lotti, down in 8th too. But it has been a great drive from Ruggiero, Isaac, a great recovery drive, you should say.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's be honest, though, I think his chances of making it through to the top 2 in terms of points are going to be very slim, also courtesy of the top 5 or the top 4 in front of him making it through that first chicane in lap 1 as well, unscathed. But hats off to his recovery drive. Yeah, I still don't know what happened there in race 1, why he got sent to the pit lane. But he's been the biggest movers for sure. And so let's see if he can maybe catch up. The gap is 1.7. If he can catch up to this world-class top group, I think that will say enough about how well he has done in the races.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to remember he started basically from the back after being put in the pit lane after maybe not, should we say, conforming to necessarily to the way the formation lap works. Whether he did not set to the grid in time, we're not quite sure. But nonetheless, in a solid position now to score some decent points. Obviously not enough to make his way through to the grand final, but racing for pride here at this stage as Linus Lucasen picks up the fastest lap of the race so far, just over 3.25 to 3.5 tenths in between he and Castorino right now as they make their way up the hill. We're currently watching Zane Lotti closing down on the back of Michael Frey as they look to contest over P7, as now once again Castorino gets a little bit closer to Caracas. Once again a measured approach, not looking for the move just yet. He's in the pound seats right now in 2nd place, so holding his own for now, and once again might choose to open up the door towards the latter stages of this one with 9 minutes still to run here, Lewis.
Yeah, indeed. Whoa, big and out wide there. We're seeing the race start, and of course that run down into the opening quarter. Looking here at Chinotti in the mid-pack, of course, getting involved in some of the earlier dramas, of course. See how this one ended up. There was a couple of cars sliding around, trying to slow down for it, and then just getting sent into the barrier. It's one of those awkward bits when you're in that mid-pack. When things start to check up ahead of you, there's almost nothing you can do, and it only takes one person to misunderstand what's going on, and you're all basically into the barrier. It's a very big shame for Chinotti, who's had a very disappointing evening comparatively to where we'd expect. This is back down the field. We've got Davey Hill, who currently sits in 11th position, with Florentini. Meckelholt, who also had a bad start to the race on that run through the bus stop on the opening lap, sitting just behind them.
Yeah, and obviously Davey Hill looking to chase for a first points finish of the evening as well. Remember, P10 is the lowest point scoring opportunity. Mirko Fiorentini now looking to hustle his way through past Davey Hill. Had a little bit of a sideways moment though, coming through the penultimate corner and managing to recover anyway on the outset of turn 10 before hitting turn 11. We're riding on board now with the Italian. As you can see, Davey Hill right in front of him in the red 296 as they skip over the curb on the outset, as now they cruise upwards through turn 2 and turn 3 at the S's, before then hitting turn 4 where the back straight opens up and they can really make the most of this Ferrari 296 6-cylinder engine, and heading up through towards the inner loop before hitting the outer loop at turn 5. Caracas though still with the lead right now. Castorino still very much hot on his heels as we see Fiorenti making his way downhill now through turn 5 out of the outer loop in towards the chute, and ensuring that they are taking the more optimal lines, despite it being probably very uncomfortable through that chicane there, Isaac.
It's something that you really have to set the car up for, and I wonder what we have seen with Caracas as well, being more comfortable taking more of that final fourth curve it is at the end of the chicane. I wonder if he has got his car more set up to take more curb. But then the downside is if you have to raise your ride height in order to take so much curb, you lose downforce, because then the floor is not as efficient anymore, and then you might lose downforce through some other corners. It doesn't look like Caracas suffers from any downforce or lack of grip, but it's certainly like on a track like this, something that you have to think about when you are building the setup.
Yeah, obviously they've got to be set up conscious in order to manage a track like this, and obviously ride heights need to be contested as well as everything else, camber, things of that nature. And it is so precise on Assetto Corsa Competizione, isn't it, Lewis? I mean, essentially building a setup here, extremely difficult. I mean, it's difficult for any driver at the best of times. And if you do have that capability, it's another thing, another string to your bow in becoming a great driver, as we see another car moving out wide. And I think that is actually Battistella just going wide of the apex there.
I'd say if there was one bit of advice I could give to any new driver into the world of sim racing, it is learn how to build a setup. Don't rely on setup shops. Don't rely on your teammates and this, that, and the other. Don't get me wrong. The setup shops are amazing for us casuals who don't know anything, right?
Oh,
great for us. That is a big hit into the barrier coming in for Fiorentini. That was a massive crash going through the exit of the bus stop, and I'm sure that car will basically be done and dusted. I don't know if that was Fiorentini.
I think it was Battistella, I think.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, he is now pretty much been yeeted through the back exit from our timing screen. So he is not going to take any further part. And am I surprised? I'm not quite sure I am, because he definitely did hit the barrier at some force there, did he. So unfortunately, that will bring a very premature end to his race. So we do just have just under 5 minutes to go here in this race. But yeah, a little bit of a heart-stopping moment for him, and it does mean now that Davy Hill gets promoted into P10, so will gain his first point of the championship as we now watch them make their way down through towards turn 1 once more. Duke Novicius has taken the fastest lap as well, holding on to that purple lap now and looking to bring his absolute best. So the top two are starting to career onwards here. And it's just over 4 1/4 tenths difference now between Caracas and Castorino, should I say, coming through onto this next lap. 4 minutes and 20 to go. And we could take a look back at a replay of a little incident that happened a little bit earlier on here, Lewis. We will be taking a look at it shortly. Here it comes. So extrapolate this for us, Lewis.
So we're looking at Baduda here. There we go. So cutting straight over on the inside. Bit of contact. Baduda sent off into the barrier. Ruggiero was doing a great job working his way up through the field, but obviously pushing a little bit too hard there. That's how Ruggiero dropped back behind Frey and into 6th position. And unfortunately, how Baduda dropped back down to 8th probably is holding a fair amount of damage around this circuit. I will say one thing, though. The top two that we were expecting to be the top two of the evening, they've really made their mark in this race, haven't they, George? 3 minutes and 30 seconds left to go. We are on the ante-penultimate lap. Again, I'm going to keep using that word. The pre-penultimate, whatever you want to call it. The one before the penultimate lap. 2 to go at the line. They've checked out in this race far more than they did in the previous race. They are looking to be the class of the field, and for that it means that Castorino now has no pressure to go for the move on Caracas, because obviously we get 2 drivers through this evening, and he would be the second. Yeah,
he would have no need to chase for that race victory now at all, unless he wants to do it for just from a sporting aspect. I'm not quite sure, but of course it'd be needless at this stage. And back-to-back P2s will be enough to send him through to Ferrari World, Yas Island, Abu Dhabi. Ute Novicius on the back now of Lucasen. Also, they're scrapping over P3, but we're watching Matteo Cinotti, who had his own fair share of issues earlier on in the race. Got, unfortunately, hit at turn 1 before then hitting the barrier and then descending down the order, and currently resides in P14 as now they storm through now the first sector once again. We're back with our top 4, and most notably Taras Duke Novicius as he looks to chase after a P3 visit, and Linus Lucasen is the driver that he's lining up for a potential overtake, but nothing doing on this lap. And we do have 2 minutes and 15 or so to go. And here at this stage, and we will yet, I think, get one more lap after this one. So we are now, Lewis, just to confirm your statement, we are on the penultimate lap.
Definitely on the penultimate lap now, that is for sure. Like I say, I'm not sure how much fighting we'll see between the top two. Maybe Castorino will give something a look, but I think he's more looking at working his way into the grand final rather than trying to take an unneeded victory here. The second place in the previous race, the second place in this will be plenty to work his way with the plane ticket straight over to Yas Island. Again, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see him go for a move. But these drivers these days in sim racing, they're big brain users. You know, they know what they're doing. They know how to reach finals, to get there consistently. So I get the feeling that Castorino is going to settle in for a nice, comfortable drive around this Watkins Glen circuit and reap his rewards by taking that trip to the grand final along with Grantis Caracas.
Well, the big question is, unless Castorino does look to flex his muscles and go for the lead, as we now see, once again, Duke Novich is getting closer to the back of Linus Lucas, and they're going to be contesting over third right now. You can see him picture-in-picture down the inside. Contact! Oh, my goodness, Lucasen has been sent wide and spun at turn one after coming together with Duke Novicius. As now we pan across to our two race leaders. Obviously, that is certainly not the way that Lucasen would have liked to have ended his race here, and any chance of him going through is certainly not going to be on the cards here, as the front two now career onwards and upwards. Duke Novicius in third. That is confirmed on his account. We will get a replay of that moment. Let's see it again. This is the moment where Duke Novicius was right on the heels of Lucasen coming down into turn one, late on the brakes, tried to commit to the inside. Oh, I'm not sure quite what to say there. It looked like there was enough for him on the inside, Isaac, but what do you make of it?
Difficult to say there. It's either Novicius got left enough room and then he slid wide from the apex, or he got squeezed onto the apex and then there was contact. I think not possible to see it from that angle, but just not something we want to see in the first place, contact like that, because it just ended in tears for Lucasen, the calm German. So really unfortunate after a strong showing, just very unfortunate.
Yeah, really, really unfortunate. But for the top two, they're not going to worry too much at all. Grantis Caracas has put in a sterling display once again. And after doing enough to take pole, he went ahead and took victory. Well, he's going to land a second one as well. A perfect night at the office for Grantis Caracas. The Lithuanian will be going through to the Ferrari HP Esports Series Grand Final, and he will be joined by Amedeo Castorino as well. The likely two that we predicted right at the top of the show, they will be going to Yas Island, Abu Dhabi. And we wish them all the very best heading into the grand final. Duke Novicius will come across the line in third, though there will be, I'm sure, some discussions post-race as to where those two end up, of course, in that exchange, that battle, of course, that we saw between Lucasen and Duke Novicius. But nonetheless, it will not disrupt the two that do head through to the Ferrari World Yas Island Abu Dhabi Ferrari HP Sports Series Grand Final. It is going to be Grantis Caracas and Amedeo Castorino. They are your finalists from EMEA on Assetto Corsa Competizione, Lewis.
Yeah, very deserved as well. Definitely the two strongest drivers over the evening. They definitely proved that here in the second race. The first race was a little bit tighter, but like I say, they've played their cards brilliantly. Castorino not going for anything silly on the last lap, because the thing is, had he gone for something silly, had he gone for a look down the inside, it could have very much ended with a similar incident down to that first corner, what we saw in the battle for third. And with that, then yeah, sure, you might get through on it, but then there's always a bit of a question mark over it as to whether you're going to be able to see that one, whether you're going to get through the steward's office. It's all a very complicated scenario, but here's your points, George.
Let's run through those standings. Grantis Caracas with 2 wins back-to-back. It means that he finishes with 50 points under his belt, and also that ticket to Ferrari World Yas Island Abu Dhabi. He will be joined by Amedeo Castorino as well on 36 points. Taras Duke Novicius in third place on 27, ahead of Linus Lucasen on 21. Michael Herman Frey in 5th on 18, 4 ahead of Jeremy Beduda in 6th place, ahead of Andrea Zainalotti on 12. In 7th place with Eduardo Ruggiero in 8th spot as well, achieving 10 points after recovering from race 1's issue. Mirko Fiorentini in 9th place with 10 points, and then Matteo Cinotti in 10th with 2. Tim Meckelholt on 1 point, joined by Eduardo G. Giacomi as well in 12th. Then Fabrizio Campanella on 0 points, joined by David Kalaksai, as well as Leon Hopp and Dennis Alacqua as well. So they, of course, will not be moving through at all. But it's been an astonishing display. Obviously, I would say probably a formality for the front two, Isaac. They gave a great account, didn't they?
Yes, for sure. They had that great pace, and as Lewis would say, they use their big brains very well in just keeping calm, especially Castorino going into the final in Abu Dhabi. Of course, points get reset, so there's no point. As long as you get that plane ticket, you're there, and everybody starts from 0, and then it's down to their skill in the final itself, not these points. So I think very smartly and very well driven.
Yeah, I think obviously this is one of those occasions, Lewis, where it was qualifying that decided the two heading through to that grand final.
Yeah, certainly so. It's always the way, you know, around even around here where you've got such a relatively raceable circuit. We've said this before about the Ferrari HP Esports series, that qualifying is so incredibly important, and we've seen that on iRace, we've seen that on Assetto Corsa, we're seeing that here on Assetto Corsa Competizione as well, that maybe not necessarily have to have pole position, but you've got to be somewhere on the front couple of rows if you're going to have a chance. If you're starting from the middle of the field, if you're starting from the rear, if you're starting from the pit lane, sure, you can make a few overtakes. You're never going to be able to work your way all the way through. It's just sometimes how it goes.
Yeah, no, it certainly is, folks. And we would like to thank you all as well for tuning in as well and joining us for the EMEA region on Assetto Corsa Competizione. We have got 2 more to bring you, and it all kicks off again tomorrow. And then that's all drivers decided heading through to Ferrari World Yas Island, Abu Dhabi. But a big thank you to Isaac Gillison, big thank you to Lewis McGlade. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. Until then, grazie mille.